Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on poverty. The overall poverty rate in the U.S. is 13.5%, and that's some 43.1 million people. Many Americans working several jobs are still considered to be in poverty, as well as some senior citizens living on a fixed income. Unfortunately, Milwaukee is ranked within the top 5 in our nation for the highest poverty level. My first guest is Abra Fortson. She works with the Social Development Commission, an organization with a goal of empowering Milwaukee County residents with the resources to move beyond poverty. How are you, Abra?
I'm great.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And SDC operates more than 20 programs designed to improve the overall quality of life for people who are considered low income. So if you would tell us more about what it is you do.
Well, in the capacity that I serve in at SDC, I am the executive support manager. So I function as a liaison between the executive office and our board of commissioners. Our board of commissioners is constructed of roughly 18 individuals that represent the public, private, and the elected sector of our community. So what I do is I'm responsible for most of the public notices, the making sure that appointments are intact, and I'm also, one of my special positions in that function is as project coordinator for this year's 2017 Summit on Poverty.
Yes, and that's what brings you here today to talk more about that. So poverty is seen by some as a multi-dimensional phenomenon. An article written by the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel stated that the challenge facing Milwaukee goes beyond education, crime, and jobs. I'm interested in knowing if you agree with that.
Absolutely. Actually, let me just back up into how we came into this process. In 2016, one of the things that SDC was doing is it was right-sizing itself as an agency, which had been in a process that began probably in about 2013. One of the things we knew that we needed to do was that we needed to be authentic to our mission focus. And so in doing that, while we did some internal strategic planning and visioning and workshops and all those things that help you become strong as an organization, we also talked to our community partners, other community-based organizations who did work and functioned as partners, in the community. And one of the things that we learned from that process across the board was that people really expected for us to continue our strength, which was community engagement. And from that community engagement, historically, we would do an annual summit, which used to be called the Symposium on Poverty. In inviting all those folks to the table, we knew that, first of all, we knew that Milwaukee had been on the top or on the bottom of many lists that probably produced a negative perception nationwide of Milwaukee. But we also knew that we worked with some great folks and that there were so many possibilities for the people that we served in Milwaukee, but we knew that there were barriers that existed. So in pulling together all those subject matter experts in the form of CBOs across Milwaukee County, we got into a room and we had an honest conversation. And based on that honest conversation, knowing what we were expecting to occur in this summit, we asked people to be honest about what they thought barriers were. So as you can imagine, having some of the city's top CBOs in the room, and also some of the most passionate, most informed people in the room, there was a lot of conversation. Some of that conversation hurt. And a lot of it was uncomfortable. And so we knew that through that process that we needed to, we saw a lot of symptoms or outgrowths of barriers, but we knew we needed to whittle that process down and focus. And through trying to understand and develop our core barriers, we went through the 5 whys process. A lot of people may or may not be familiar with that, but it was it helped us develop our framework. And so from that framework, we identified those key barriers being isms, cognitive dissonance, policies and systems, and trauma. And that's how we built last year's conference, on that, honest and courageous conversation that needed to be had.
Okay. It's just really interesting to hear you just break it down, but that's what needs to be done, because we're looking at the lives of people kind of being a cycle.
Absolutely.
Because that's what poverty turns into, a generational cycle.
Absolutely.
And your work involves really being able to break that. So this year's summit is coming up on September 6th and 7th.
Yes.
And you've pretty much broken it down on how you're bringing service providers and people who are experts in certain areas together to really look for solutions. And
Absolutely.
This year, you're partnering with the Medical Society of Milwaukee County, along with the coalition of partner agencies. So stats are showing that poverty doesn't strike all demographics equally. So I'm guessing that's part of what you're looking at, and being able to find the right resources for those individuals who are hit a little harder than others, right?
Yeah, one of the things that that had always been a struggle for us as the state's largest community action agency is we have the benefit of being able to also collaborate across the state, even up to the federal level, with other community action agencies. And some of the distinct information that we were able to collect in these processes let us know that poverty, there are very subtle differences in poverty that happens in an urban setting versus in a rural setting. For instance, when you talk about education, while we have some of the same outliers that apply, lack of employment, not being able to make ends meet, we also noticed that there were subtle differences in the rural experience of poverty, but it was poverty just the same. For instance, children who come from rural communities don't have many school options to go to, so they're not as transient as children who experience poverty in urban areas. So yeah.
Very interesting. So you've got some keynote speakers who are coming
really
to
excited about
the 2017 SDC Summit. And this is actually interesting in the sense that you have individuals who really come from two different backgrounds. So on the 6th, the Medical Society of Milwaukee County is hosting Catherine Eaton.
Yes.
So if you would tell us about this groundbreaking researcher.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, we're so grateful to Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, who is our presenting sponsor, but we've been able to develop a key pivotal relationship with the Medical Society of Milwaukee County, in that they came to the table and they offered this day one keynote speaker up. Catherine Eaton is a foremost authority in sociology in this area of poverty in the United States. She actually was doing some research in Baltimore. I think she was a fellow with Johns Hopkins University. And in the research, she discovered that there was a gap. Those who work in community action knew that there was a hole of a population that isn't always as well documented, because they may not necessarily be receiving resources. So they, function in a different sort of sub-economy, in that they live generationally, or they have innovative living arrangements, or they barter. They have all desire to do better. Anybody that's in, no matter what state of poverty you in, it's a natural human desire to not want to be in lack. And so her work was really revealing, and so it produced the book Living on $2 a Day in America, that was riveting for people who wouldn't have otherwise, that didn't work in this industry. understand
Wow.
the challenges.
And that the title again, $2 a day, living on almost nothing in America.
Yeah.
And people really do face that challenge. We see it with people demanding more money and minimum wage and things of this nature. And I had a young man on this show before when we were talking about the minimum wage debate, and I asked him if he could, make more money, what would he want to buy? And it was interesting, his answer, he said paper towel. Something we take for granted all day long. We got kids who pull off 7 pieces of paper towel and don't think twice about it. When there's someone who says, I wish I made more money so I could buy paper towel. So it really does really break it down and make you take a step back and put yourself in someone else's shoes and realize that, people want to do better. So it's important for organizations like SDC and all the others who are getting together to come up with solutions and resources for people who have that desire.
Absolutely.
That's for sure. So SDC is bringing Kevin Powell. And when I saw this name, I thought, whoa, because I know Kevin Powell is deep.
Yeah.
And Kevin Powell has a presence.
Yes.
And a lot of people definitely, from our day, remember him from being one of the original members of the first reality show, kind of, that makes us all sound old, The Real World.
Absolutely.
And then there was also him being a founding staff member over at Vibe.
Yeah.
So he brings a lot to the table, and he knows firsthand what it's like to grow up and not have the things that some people have and don't think twice about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kevin Powell, what I was really excited about in this experience is that his passion is poverty. His mission in life is to combat poverty, but he also is an advocate for women's issues as well. But Kevin shared with us his story of having grown up in poverty in New Jersey. His mother had an 8th grade education, single mom, and he talked about how he's still amazed at how he was able to navigate that experience as a young black man in America, and has lectured all over the world about his experience in poverty and how he matriculated through school, ended up running for office in New York, so he knows the policies and systems, and he has experienced those isms and seen the dissonance. And
he is what we would call woke. Absolutely. Yeah.
He's the epitome of woke.
And so people will have a chance to hear him as a keynote as well. So before we wrap up, Abra, I wanted to just bring out some specific issues when poverty is examined, especially when it comes to our children. 30% of children raised in poverty do not finish high school. Children who grow up in the U.S. are more likely to be in poor health. And then poverty has a significant and direct effect on young people's likelihood to engage in violence by the age of 15. So when you look at things like this, it makes sense where somebody will get caught in a cycle. But there is hope. Do you believe there's hope?
What we're hoping to do is start to have this conversation in a different way. Poverty is a very traumatic experience, and we want to make sure that we engage all of the people who come to the table. One of the things I wanted to make sure I'd let you know is that the community will also be involved in this summit. The summit is free, and people should register at our website at cr-sdc.org. But we definitely recognize through all of these barriers, there are multiple layers we could go on and on about, but we're trying to educate ourselves so that through educating ourselves, we empower people who are in poverty to move beyond.
All right, there it is. Thank you so much for your time today. And it has been a pleasure. Abra Fortson is the Executive Support Manager at the Social Development Commission and a manager of SDC Summit on Poverty, Dismantling Systems of Poverty, on September 6th and 7th. For more information about anything we've discussed, again, you can visit their website at cr-sdc.org. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll continue our focus on poverty and find out more about an innovative anti-poverty program backed by a local church and a Wisconsin politician. We'll be right back after this.